Well, I think there was a view at the time that Jeremy Corbyn and his team were not there for UK. They're not there for Britain. I think veterans were quite concerned about it. The NATO issue was very alive. I think also defence. And I think that there was a view that he had too many friends that we didn't like. Northern Ireland views on that. And I think that there was a view that Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't stand up for the UK when it mattered.
So, James, you've heard what James has had to say. You were close to Jeremy Corbyn. How do you come back on that one?
Well, it's completely wrong, and unfortunately the British public were deliberately misinformed about what Corbyn's positions were and how they were in the interests of the overwhelming majority of people, including serving armed forces and veterans. So let's take those things in turn. So for serving armed forces, the Labour policy, Corbyn's policy, was for a pay rise, to improve housing, to improve education for children, to give a voice with something similar like the Police Federation, and to deal with outsourcing where there are complaints of poor kit and that sort of thing. For veterans, also, we should say that under the Tories, pay for the military has fallen in real terms really quite a lot. So that was a good offer there. For veterans, Corbyn's policy was housing for all, training for all, job opportunities for all, and mental health support for all. Far better than what was offered for the Tories. On questions of defence and security, Corbyn's policies were in favour of the security of people of this country. And yes, that is a change in our foreign policy and our security policy. It would be an end to the bomb first, think later policies, which have made us demonstrably less safe at home and have damaged us abroad. So yes, there's a reason why senior people in the military did not want to change, and in the security services did not want to change the policy, were violently opposed to Corbyn and worked hard against him. But that doesn't mean that his policies weren't in the interest of the overwhelming majority of people in this country and their security and safety, because they were. And it doesn't mean that they're not in the interest of ordinary serving people in the armed forces and veterans, because, again, they really were.
So, James, you've heard what James has had to say about Corbyn was pro-military, wanted to look after our veterans, our serving armed forces. You was there.
I was certainly there and served from 2010 under a Conservative government. And, the Tory government did an awful lot for the armed forces and still doing that. So, pay is up in real terms.
Pay in real terms.
Well, there are fiscal constraints that any government is subject to. It is a measure of a pragmatic, responsible government to make tough decisions. But the bottom line is we've seen once again with the Ukraine conflict that the British government is absolutely there to support our allies, there to support NATO. The nuclear question has come up again recently, and I'm pretty happy that the Conservative government is absolutely the government of the armed forces.
And can we have a Prime Minister of this country who is not prepared to press the button?
It's very important that if you've got the nuclear deterrent and that there is a good reason to use it, which is absolutely in extremis, that Prime Minister has the ultimate responsibility. It's very important, therefore, that if we hold something like the nuclear deterrent on our V-boats, then we need to be able to use it if the time comes. But hopefully never.
It's up to the people of the country to decide what will make them more safe and therefore to elect who they want to elect. What we saw under Corbyn's leadership was an anti-democratic campaign by senior current and former figures in the military and in the security services to undermine that straightforward democratic choice, to end the war on terror, to not see things like which made us less safe. Let's look at the Libya intervention. Jeremy Corbyn was one of 13 MPs in Parliament at the time to vote against the regime change operation in Libya. Now, that operation is directly linked to the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017. The bomber went to Libya to fight with NATO support there. The policies that Corbyn was putting forward were, yes, a big break, and a big break that the country desperately needs.
So do you think the world would have been a safer place, James,
much safer place,
with Corbyn running the UK?
Substantially safer place, yes.
OK, James, do you want to come back on that?
Well, I disagree with that. I think that, you have soft power and hard power. And ultimately, for any country to be credible, it has to be able to use that hard power. And that's why we have the armed forces. We have the armed forces to keep people safe. The defence of our borders and our people is our primary responsibility in government. And it's about trust. And in 2019, my suspicion is that the British people did not trust Corbyn or what his policies were going to do.
OK,
so... engage with any of the policies, though, that I just
James,
said. Let's actually talk about the substance of the matter rather than
the British public was sort of duped and misled. And
I would argue that a concerted media campaign over the course of 4.5 years by pretty much all of the media to say that this guy who wants to give veterans housing and boost the pay of squaddies and doesn't want to engage in illegal wars, send people off to die for no reason.
I was in the Labour Party at the time when Corbyn was elected twice as leader, and it's not just, you might say the media was against him, but half the Labour Party was against him. Even his own MPs were against him.
Of course. There is a substantial chunk of the Labour MPs that are entirely in hoc to the status quo, the US-led status quo on foreign and security policy, which is why the biggest rebellion against Corbyn's leadership from Labour MPs was over a vote to stop to not sell arms to Saudi Arabia to carry on its bombing in Yemen.
OK. I was there during the coup to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn when the letters were going in, almost every hour. I was working for a Labour MP at the time, and it wasn't just the country that didn't want Jeremy Corbyn; it was half the parliamentary party.
Yes, but that's precisely what I said, and that's hardly surprising because a lot of the parliamentary party don't have the kinds of politics and policies that I'm putting forward, which is why the establishment writ large, the establishment in the Labour Party, the establishment in the States, the establishment in the media, the establishment in the city, were all in lockstep opposed to Corbyn because he wanted to do such terrible things like tax the rich a bit more so we can have better public services and not go and start random illegal wars.
So, James, half his parliamentary party didn't want him. The vast majority of the country didn't want him. I certainly didn't want him. Was there a conspiracy? Was there a campaign? I suspect there was. It was the right campaign.
At the time of his leadership of the party, for most of it, I was in the army as a serving army officer, and I left the army very late in 2019 to become a candidate for the Conservative Party. So you probably need to ask Labour colleagues about it. But what I would say to you, I have no personal beef at all with Jeremy Corbyn. Met him a few times. He's perfectly friendly. He's a conviction politician. In my view, the UK needs more conviction politicians. But his views were out of kilter with the majority of the UK. That's why he lost the election in 2019. And also, of course, he has lost the whip. And Keir Starmer has spent quite a bit of time and effort in trying to eradicate the notion of anti-Semitism from the party. So I think that Corbyn's legacy is probably still quite toxic.
It is toxic.